Well, for more, I'm joined in the studio by our International Affairs Commentator, Doug Herbert. Hi, Doug. So what are Israel's objectives and how is it defending its actions amid the ongoing international criticism, including to that of the blocking of humanitarian aid?
Look, we're having sort of deja vu all over again, right? Because it sounds like the narrative we're telling right now, it is press return to the earliest days of this war during the height of the early bombardment of the Gaza enclave, shortly after the Hamas attacks on Israel and the taking of those hostages in the winter of 2023, 2024. Here we are again. We saw those images in the package in that report there showing a Gaza that really looks a little bit like Berlin after World War II. I mean, in areas even worse, if that's even possible. What we have are the same official explanations, right? The narrative is now sort of engraved in marble. It is to defeat Hamas, and it is to get all the hostages released, because there's still an estimated 58 hostages still being held in Gaza, of which 20 are believed to still be alive. So that's the official line. Unofficially, though, we've had this week the UN Human Rights Commissioner, Volker Turk, just in the past couple of days on social media, saying that more and more what is really looking like is that this is an all-out campaign by Benjamin Netanyahu at the behest of the most radically far-right government in Israel's modern history to displace massive amounts of Palestinians. Since the ceasefire broke down, we've had over 400,000 Palestinians displaced. Displaced is a euphemism for uprooted from their homes, forced to go elsewhere where they really don't have any security or safety. To displace them, to essentially de facto put into effect a demographic shift. Now, what Volker Turk, the Human Rights Commissioner, says, he has said that this is equivalent to ethnic cleansing. He has used the term, I believe on several occasions, ethnic cleansing, and it's a term that has also been evoked by others. Obviously, Israel vehemently denies anything of the sort. They will continually to tell you this is a military operation aimed at rooting out Hamas militants, and defeating Hamas remains their sort of arch imperative operational objective. The fact remains, after 19 months of war, Hamas remains very much empowered. It's not going away. And critics of this military strategy by Israel say that, if anything, it is going to have the perverse effect of reinforcing Hamas, making it double down, and also stoking the anger and resentment of a whole new generation that has borne the brunt of this war, along with millions of other Palestinian civilians bearing the brunt of this military assault. So the objectives, defeat Hamas, get the hostages out, but a lot of the critics and those who are pushing back against that official narrative say that that is just so many words, Jenny. And even this week, Netanyahu gives a little grist to the mill of those critics when he says things like, and I have the quote here, he said earlier this week, quote, "We are destroying more and more homes." He's talking about homes in the Gaza Strip. "They have nowhere to return to," they being Palestinian civilians. "The only inevitable outcome will be the desire of Gazans to emigrate outside of the Gaza Strip." If that sounds familiar, it's because it echoes almost to the word, to the letter, what Donald Trump has said, his vision of, he called Gaza demolition site, wants to relocate all 2.3 million Palestinians outside of the Strip so that he could create a freedom zone, so that he could create what he called the Riviera of the Middle East.
Now, ceasefire talks have resumed in Qatar, and Arab League summit in Baghdad is calling for a truce and funding to rebuild Gaza. What do we know about that?
Well, we know that these are talks happening in Baghdad. They seem, from the perspective of what's going on right now in the skies above Gaza and the reality of the ground, where Israeli troops are, getting into formation reportedly along the borders, with some sort of ground invasion imminent again to seize more territory of Gaza beyond the zones already seized. All of that, the parallel talks in Baghdad with the Arab League, with Mahmoud Abbas, the Palestinian Authority leader in Tenton, they want a ceasefire. This is what they've been calling for a while. And they also want a reconstruction plan for Gaza. Not a reconstruction plan as Donald Trump, and perhaps Netanyahu sees it, but mostly Donald Trump, the Riviera of the Middle East, with hotels and casinos being built in lieu of Palestinians living there and millions of homes. What they're looking for is reconstruction of the Strip, long-term reconstruction. Egypt's president is there too. A withdrawal of all Israeli troops. This was the original condition here, but that is not the way things have been going over the past few months. Since Israel abandoned, essentially renounced the 2-month ceasefire in mid-March, we've had what seems like a march more and more towards a concerted military offensive aimed at cracking down and removing civilians from Gaza through whatever means necessary, even if that's not explicitly stated as the military objective at this point.
Doug, thank you very much indeed.